As I stepped out of my squad car onto the dark, wet pavement, I pulled in a deep breath of the cool, damp air. There were other cars there, other officers trying to assess the situation. I watched as uniformed men traveled back and forth, speaking in hushed tones or filling out paperwork. Today had been my first day out, my first day actually responding to calls, and so far it had been fine. However, around 11 p.m., maybe a little later, a call had come through over the radio. A 10:52, and all available officers responded. A 10:52 meant an ambulance was needed, and if that was the case, surely it was urgent. So I flipped on my lights and headed for the location dispatch had given. This is where it had led me, to stand among this gathering of my fellow officers. I found myself realizing there were more people here than there should have been. Then I realized why. On the edge of the circle of squad cars were large, dark vehicles, and a single van. A crime scene investigation van. Initially I had thought that maybe I was responding to a wreck, given the rural location, but clearly it was something a little more sinister. At least, I told myself the victim had survived. I mean, that's why the ambulance was needed, wasn't it? My eyes turned away from the van and found the back of the ambulance. Yes, there she was, sitting on the step of the open back doors. Even from here I could see that she was soaked, water dripping out of her stingy auburn hair, and makeup running down her face. I don't know why, and I'll never be able to explain it to you for as long as I live, but something about her drew me in, and so I walked past every other officer towards her. Maybe it was that she somehow reminded me of my sister, my younger sister who I hadn't seen in nearly 4 years now. I knew protocol. I should have checked with one of the higher-up officers and found out what the whole situation was first, but I ignored it. Instead, my boots thudded against the pavement as I came to a stop in front of her. "Good evening, ma'am. I'm Officer Macmillan. I just wanted to check up on you, see how you're doing," I offered politely, hands settling on my belt as her green eyes reflected the flashing red and blue lights. She sniffled and pulled the mandatory shock blanket tighter around her frame, nodding once. "I'm alright, I suppose. As good as one can be, given all this," she muttered, to which I mimicked her nod. "If you don't mind me asking," I started again, "could you tell me what happened? I'm sure you're tired of talking about it, I know, but it's protocol." Even still, I didn't pull out a notepad, or even a pen. Her eyes drifted, following movement somewhere behind me, but then snapped back to my face. Instantly, I regretted asking. I could see the pain in her eyes. Whatever had happened to her was clearly awful. Looking closer, I could see handprints around her throat. Prints that was slowly turning into bruises. Shifting. I studied the back of each dark car, looking for the person who had done this to her. Surely they'd been apprehended, right? She was still alive, so surely my coworkers had caught it just in time. My focus was pulled back to her as she finally spoke again. "I honestly don't remember how it happened. My girlfriend and I were at home, watching horror movies because of the rain," she started, taking a deep breath and reaching up to push the wet hair out away from her face. "At some point, she asked if we could take a drive and meet some of her friends for some drinks. I agreed and we headed out. We take this road all the time, but tonight she stopped. I thought maybe something was wrong with the car, but..." She paused, eyes narrowing as she tried to remember, as she tried to pull herself back from what had happened. "I remember another car pulling to a stop in front of us, and it was 4 men getting out. 4 men I didn't recognize. I think Gina, my girlfriend, did. I guess I'm just kind of assuming, but sometimes you just kind of know. Anyway, she started to get out of the car, so I followed her, and that's all I can remember, except feeling cold. Oh God, I was so cold. That cold also sets into your bones. You can't get rid of it. I still feel it. I just can't remember." Slowly, she faded off. She was silent for a while, once again pulling the blanket tighter around her as her eyes drifted. I followed her gaze, watching as the little color that was left in her face drained away when her eyes landed on the cold, black, churning waters of the river off the side of the road. Something like recognition flashed in her emerald eyes. Something that turned to fear and caused tears to well up faster than I ever thought possible. I didn't understand, but it seemed that she was equally as confused, palming away the tears quickly and offering fearful, confused laughs. "I don't remember," she said again. "I can't remember. I can't remember. I can't remember. I can't remember." And then silence again. Silence aside from her sobs and the sound of other boots tracking through the mud and all over the pavement. There was another noise now. Wheels? But not car tires, no. It sounded like a wheelchair. We both turned, watching as the paramedics rolled a gurney away from the edge of the water. On that gurney, a very clearly full black body bag. I turned back to face the woman again, but she was gone. Despite the fact that I could very clearly still hear her voice, much quieter than it had been. "I remember," her voice echoed, and I turned again, trying to find the source, but no. She was gone. She was gone and I couldn't see her anywhere. Matter of fact, I couldn't even see a sign that she'd been there. I stepped back and allowed the EMTs to get the gurney tucked away in the back of the ambulance before pulling one of them aside. "Hey man, did you see where that woman went? Red hair, green eyes, soaking wet?" I asked, but the paramedic made a face. A face almost like I'd spit right at him. "Don't know what you're playing at, buddy, but that ain't funny," he argued. "What are you talking about? She was just here. She was trying to remember what happened to her." He opened the back of the ambulance again, stepping up and motioning me to follow. Without another word, he unzipped the body bag, and what I saw left me shaken to my very core. What I saw caused me to quit the force the very next morning. On that gurney lay the woman that I'd been speaking with. The same river water tangled red curls, the same bruising around her neck, the same smeared makeup and colorless face. The only thing that had changed was the eyes. Eyes that had once been so bright green were now lifeless, mossy and cloudy as death set in. She'd been dead all along.